Live on the Done Deal show this morning, we are delving into the final transfers building up to the end of this window. I'm joined, of course, by Dean Jones, who will be coming through in just a few moments. But we are talking Saul Niguez to Chelsea. Could this deal be on? The agent pushing hard to get this deal over the line, picking up pace. We're going to look into the ins and outs of the potential move to Stamford Bridge and other suitors across Europe. Of course, Barcelona and Liverpool heavily touted to sign him earlier on in the window. We're also going to take a look at Manchester United. Big calls for a central midfield player to come in. Reports across the media in the last 3 or 4 days suggest that Ruben Neves is still a deal that's on, along with Camavinga. Could Man United still go on further and improve on what has already been a very successful transfer window? We're going to delve into other areas of Arsenal, Tottenham, of course, Harry Kane and Manchester City as well. Any questions you have, any transfer stories that you want information on, make sure you get your comments in, super chat and member chats in as well. Smash that like button for us. This is the Done Deal Show. Here we go. Morning, Dean. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, mate. Yeah, not bad at all. Little bit of strange window at the moment. It's not quite as mad as you would expect it, but there are a few big things I think still to kick on. So yeah, I think people just getting their cards in place for what's to come.
Yeah, I feel the same. Really, it kind of just a few deals just seem to be sort of teetering around. Can they happen? I sort of a lot of the kind of takes from people, barring Jules Kounde, which feels like it's just for weeks now, just feels like it's waiting on Kurt Zuma to leave. The rest, it's almost could happen, but no one really wants to sort of nail their flag to the mast on it, really, which I do find really interesting. But we're going to delve into some of them. Of course, viewers, you can get your comments in. Any questions you've got for Dean, get them super chats in as well, please, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, member chats always take precedence. Shane, thank you very much for signing up and becoming a legend and super fan this morning of the Football Terrace. That means a great deal to us. If you are a legend and a super fan or a first team member, please send me a direct message if you want to come to the studio this Friday for episode 2 of Friday Night on the Terrace. Going to be a very, very entertaining night with 2 big previews coming up. So thank you very much there, Shane. But where are we going to start this morning? That's the big. Where do you want to start? What team do you want to start with, Dean? Well, I'll put that to
you. Well, let's have a think. I mean, we might as well start with Chelsea, mightn't we? The club that's probably going to do stuff. So it's a weird one. And Kounde, I think you mentioned there, is likely to get done. And the interesting thing, I was speaking to somebody yesterday about why Kounde is even such a priority right now. Like, doesn't seem like Chelsea are in desperate need of a centre half right now. Like they're not conceding any goals. They don't look at any danger of doing so. And it was interesting. It was like, well, you just got to look at the contract situation of the players. They've got 3 players with contracts expiring next season. Rudiger, Christensen and Thiago Silva. And really, this is a case of Chelsea being super intuitive and looking to the future here and making sure that they are just not caught out. And I think that that's really interesting in terms of the way that this Chelsea model is being built. And I think it's also quite scary. I think it's scary for everybody else that at a time when their first 11 already looks impeccable, they're slightly worried about next year in case people haven't signed new contracts. Like Thiago Silva, it's unlikely he does anyway. Rudiger and Christensen have been offered new terms. I think Christensen's probably further along the line. Rudiger wants a lot of money. So we'll see what happens. But it probably will get done. But I think that's really interesting that's where Chelsea's boat is, and that's what they're looking. They're already looking to set off towards the following season before they've even got full focus on the current transfer window. So yeah. I think that just adds a bit of depth to the situation, really, for people to understand like why this Kounde thing has become such a big deal to them. And like you say, it probably will get done. Like it's all there. It's all there pretty much to be just pushed along. Once the two clubs press the button, everything else is in place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as we all know, it's one of those deals, one of the 3 or 4 deals where I kind of put my sort of 10 penneth in this year rather than just listening to you and Pete and a few others. And I got
you must know something, mate. I reckon you're having whispers in your ear if you're this confident.
No, do you know what it is? The guy that I told you everyone about, that obviously the agency that I was talking to that gave me the Varane stuff, they told me about this one, and they actually messaged me. One of the guys messaged me yesterday when I was live streaming with some very choice words I'm not going to repeat on the internet because we'll get cancelled, saying I told you just to relax and it was all going to happen. His view is that everything's been the same for weeks. It's just been pending on the Zuma situation. Because as you said, Chelsea know they've got a future proof, but they're also protecting themselves against any kind of financial backlash that could come into the game. And I think a lot of fans seem to have misinterpreted the relaxing of FFP as if, because it's relaxed for a year or two, that it isn't going to come back at some point. There still isn't any sign that they're going to scrap it right now. Even though people think it might be. The worst thing for what a stupid club would do is just go, they're not going to bother. And then in 2 years' time, you're suddenly sanctioned and they throw the book at somebody and you're caught on the hop. And we saw the delay in Chelsea rebuilding themselves after Antonio Conte because of the transfer ban that came in, or between Conte and Sarri moving forward. And they're not going to want to do that again. But yeah, Jules Kounde feels like it's where it needs to be. In terms of the other deal that's really raised its sort of eyebrows in the last few days has been Saul Niguez. Now, his name has been mentioned earlier on in the summer. I remember Pete O'Rourke coming on here and talking about Liverpool's connection to him, kind of just dropped this little nugget in that Chelsea had already made inquiries. Saul Niguez to Chelsea has now kind of reared itself a potential loan move to start with. What's going on with Saul Niguez and his exit from Atletico Madrid?
I mean, to be honest, he's been put on a plate for him because his agents flew over to England a couple of weeks ago and were just touting him around to all the big clubs saying, yeah, this guy is open to a move right now. You can see his pedigree. You can see what he's done, the role that he's had at Atleti in terms of getting to where they're at. If you want to sign him, a deal's here. And, they went to United. City actually have been offered Niguez a long time ago, and remember, they ended up signing Rodri actually on the back of being linked to Saul Niguez. So yeah, Chelsea also were one of the teams that were put to him, and Chelsea are just more interested in it than the other clubs because they've been looking at their midfield, and obviously there is the possibility for a midfielder to come in. Like I said last week, like I didn't think there would be time to get like a Declan Rice deal done, and I stand by that. Tchouaméni potentially could still open up. Like Monaco have got this second leg game to play. I think it's tonight. If it's not, it's tomorrow. If they get knocked out the Champions League, then they look to cash in. And Chelsea think that they could get him for £25 million, which, to be honest, is an absolute steal and is exactly the kind of business that Chelsea look to do. But if that doesn't happen, then Saul Niguez is there with the option of a loan for the season. And to be honest, I mean, that's a no-brainer. He's an unbelievable footballer. To not have to put money into it. Obviously, at a time when you're offloading like Ross Barkley and Bakayoko, and you're bringing in Saul Niguez to the squad, again, you're just adding another depth, a layer to a squad that is ridiculous, to be honest. The more I see of Chelsea, the more convinced I am that I think they will win the league. I really do. I think if Man City don't actually go and get Kane, I think this Lukaku thing is a game changer, having this number 9. And if they've then got Saul in that role in the middle,
yeah,
and he's able to replicate what he's done for Atleti, it won't be easy because that team has been moulded in a particular way over a number of years, and for him to take that into another team will not be easy by any stretch of the imagination. And we should probably bear in mind, like when Liverpool signed Thiago, like he's not instantly able to turn it on and produce his top level. So it's not as simple as that, but the option's there. So let's see what happens and whether they do get the midfielder that they are considering. To say it's not an absolute priority, but if they can do it, they will, because it means that they're even more ready.
Yeah, the loan option just as well. I mean, I think Tchouaméni appears to me, but I think Declan Rice was the standout. But to a degree, Saul Niguez almost feels like the perfect person, because what I've read in different reports and speaking to people is there'll be a loan with a non-obligation to buy in it. And if Chelsea can work that out, it means you could get him in. It's almost like a try before you buy. And then come the end of the season, it's actually, we don't want you, and we're going to go for Declan Rice, or we're going to go for Tchouaméni, or actually you've killed it. You've been amazing. We've got the first refusal one. It just honestly feels like, I mean, I thought if Chelsea really want to have the best transfer window I've ever seen in my life, get him on a loan with an obligation to buy Tchouaméni and loan him back to Monaco for a year, and then you just got all bases covered. And I'm not saying they're going to do that. That's just me living in fandom, but I wouldn't be surprised because they've absolutely destroyed it this year. And we'll talk about City later with Harry Kane, but the pressure on City now to sign Harry Kane, I think, is massive. We saw a very small glimpse on Sunday of what Lukaku is going to bring to Chelsea Football Club. And for me, it was quite scary, if I'm being honest, the way he just looked like a different player to what I saw at Man United. Now, it was only Arsenal and Mari, and you know what I mean? The guy was holding on to, Mari was holding on to Lukaku's pocket, just like a tea bag from Prison Break. Like it was embarrassing for him. But at the same time, like it's we can all see how good Lukaku is. Adding Saul Niguez is going to be massive. Tchouaméni maybe as well. It's going to be scary.
Yeah, I mean, look, Lukaku will do that to a lot of people. It's not just Pablo Mari who's, you know, he's the first victim, really. This is going to happen all season long because Lukaku, remember, like 2-3 weeks ago, Chelsea fans on here, like, weren't into the idea of Lukaku coming in. And I was like, get real. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, you are signing one of the best number 9s on the planet. This is not the same guy that you think you saw previously. Like, he's completely evolved. He's a totally different mindset. And look, in Serie A last season, barely anyone could live with him. In fact, one of the only guys was Christian Romero, new Tottenham player. He actually did a good job on him, but there really weren't many players that could get to grips with him. It's going to be the case all season. Look, when he comes up against people like Van Dijk, which we'll see soon, yes, we'll see that kind of tussle of the muscle. But apart from guys like that, which is an obvious like physical duel, there's not many that can compete, because it's not even just the fact that he'll bring you and pin you. It's the way he'll spin off you. And that is that, I think, something that other clubs are having to consider right now. Cycles in football, trends in football, they change every few years. And obviously Pep coming into the Premier League and bringing in his false nines and his rotations, inverted wingers, whichever way you want to like dress up Man City's front line. There seems to be a cycle coming again now, and it's going back to traditional 9s. Kane is obviously one that City want, but Lukaku's in there. Haaland's a guy that everybody wants. Lewandowski's there. United have got that 9 in sense of Cavani. Like, they've got that for the time being. They want Greenwood to become a proper 9. Liverpool don't have a 9 option. I'm not saying that they are going to struggle for goals, but they don't have that same route. And I think Man City struggle if they don't get Harry Kane. They might be missing something that Chelsea have got. So,
and that's the key point there. It's that missing what someone else has got. Not that you need a number 9, but last year they not got away with it. But Chelsea didn't have that. They didn't also have Thomas Tuchel at the start of the season. So it's going to be very intriguing indeed to see what happens. Chelsea fans, any other questions you've got, get them in now. Next, we're moving on to Manchester City's pursuit of Harry Kane. I know, very cheesy. Love it.
I love
it. Harry Kane. I mean, this bid, this £150 million bid is being pushed out there. I mean, the Telegraph have reported on this a number of times. It feels credible. It feels imminent that this bid is coming. What's the latest as far as you're aware on Harry Kane's move to City?
Well, it's weird because I was told to 100% expect the bid last week, and I don't know why that hasn't happened, because people I've spoken to at City was so confident that Harry Kane's joining. So to have that such confidence, like 2 or 3 people have that I've spoken to, yet be seeing Harry Kane turning out for Tottenham, be seeing no bid from Man City. We're 1 week away from deadline. Like, is this just going to be a bid that comes in that surprises us all. That's what I'm wondering now. Like, maybe it is a bid that is in advance of £150 million, and like, this is just me speculating at the moment, but that's what I'm starting to wonder, because of the confidence and because they've left it so late. There doesn't seem there's not going to be any wiggle room for negotiation here in like 3 or 4 days. Like, it's now or never. Like, you put that money on the table, and it has to be enough that Daniel Levy is like, oh no, what can I do? What can I do? That's the situation you have to put him in right now, and that is basically £160 million. Even then, he doesn't want to do it, but he probably would have to from every angle that you look at it. So yeah, like, even though it doesn't make any sense right now, I'm still thinking that Harry Kane's going to end this window and become a Man City player. I just can't get away from it.
I'm in your train of thought. We keep hearing it's coming and it's coming, and say it hasn't happened yet. The only thing that would make sense is one thing that's really stood out massively this window and just kind of got in the way of things, has been this kind of use of intermediaries and then things being spun as not official bids going in. And I found that chat really interesting. That even with the Kounde situation yesterday, there were some very credible journalists saying like nothing's official yet, no official bids have gone in, and it's like, well, but we've been told during other deals this year that nothing official actually happens until it's pretty much all agreed. Then it becomes official. And it's really kind of confusing. The only thing that would make sense is if they've put this bid in via an intermediary and been told no, and they're now just kind of, got their tails between their legs, but they want to almost maintain that level of, well, we didn't get rejected because we didn't put the official bid in. Like that if they've made it, is the only thing that would make sense to me with the way this window has gone, with the PR spin that everyone's putting out there. But yeah, it's got to come in. I mean, also Lukaku, if they haven't done it yet, if they have got cold feet, if Lukaku spins Liverpool and puts in a performance and gets them 3 points in that game, and Chelsea look the real deal, I just can't imagine them at the very least not trying to do it. I know they slapped Norwich themselves at the weekend, but that's not really an acid test, is it? They've played 2 tough teams so far this season, City, and they've lost them both. They've got Arsenal this weekend. Who knows what's going to happen in that game? Arsenal sometimes turn up against these big teams. They've got to get this bid in for Harry Kane. They've got to get it done, no doubt. In relation to Tottenham, obviously a lot of activity has gone on at Spurs. Romero's come in, Hill's come in. It looks like they've got this deal all sewn up for this young kid, Sarr. We saw the news yesterday of Adama Traore now being heavily linked, somewhere in the region of £40 million. Do you see that as being a deal that's likely to go through?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think I said it on here when Nuno first came in, like, look out for Adama Traore. And part of the reasoning behind that was that when Nuno was in talks with Crystal Palace, he said to Crystal Palace, like, as part of his negotiations about coming in, like, okay, this is all good. I want Adama Traore. So go buy Adama Traore and we'll all get this done. Adama Traore is £40 million, and for Crystal Palace to go and spend £40 million on a player, they've kind of got a few players like him already. Didn't really make sense to them, but they were like, okay, we're happy to look into that. Let's get the deal done for you, and then we'll proceed. And he's like, from what I'm told, was like, no, I want the Adama deal done, so then I'll come. I'm like, no, we're not going to sign a player before you've come into the club. Anyway, so that gave me really a sense of like how much value Nuno was putting on Adama Traore. And I was told, look, wherever Nuno goes, he will sign Adama Traore. So then he went to Tottenham, and I was like, but Adama Traore doesn't really fit here. They've got players that can already do that. Like, I don't understand how he comes. And but I've always had it in my mind, and I've said to people, oh, Adama will probably be a Tottenham target. And here we are. It looks like it'll be a loan initially with an obligation. And I think that the reason that that's come to the table really is that it gives them time to give Wolves the value that they're looking for. Like, Wolves are adamant that they want this 40 million. And I think that by doing it this way around, it's an easier, from what I'm told, it gives them time to put all the terms in place that would satisfy that. Wolves have been open all summer, really, to Traore leaving if this money came in. Same as Ruben Neves. Like, if the right offer comes along, then they've said like he can go. That offer hasn't come obviously for Neves yet, but yeah, it's an interesting one for Tottenham. I don't think it's one that will particularly excite people. I've actually seen the opposite of that. I've seen a lot of Tottenham fans like, why do we want Adama Traore? Like, yeah, he can produce moments of brilliance, but so flaky in front of goal. Like, you don't know what you're getting from his end product. I don't understand that, but there's obviously a reason he wants him and a reason he thinks he can fit. He's worked with him for long enough to know what he's aiming for. So yeah, let's see.
There's a comment here from Leaf, one of our regular Spurs fluids, or as we like to call him, Keith with an L. He says we don't have any players like him that can dribble and create chances and put crosses like him, especially since we don't have an attacking right back. Yeah, do you know what it is? I think end product seems to be something a lot of people have got concerns with when it comes to Traore. And he has sort of been to me a sort of flash in the pan. I bet Wolves are really wishing they'd accepted that sort of £70 million offer that the likes of Man City wanted to do. That's what sometimes happens. You've got to strike with the hands up when you're selling people. I'm intrigued to see him at Tottenham. I'm intrigued to see him in a better team. I'm intrigued, and Spurs do have a better team than Wolves, and I think we've seen already 2 games in. Yeah, a bit scrappy against Wolves. But I think we've already seen 2 games in. There's the stabilities there, which wasn't under Jose Mourinho. And he's had 2 games. Like, give Nuno a little bit of time. He's a class manager. I would almost implore Tottenham fans just to trust Nuno. Nuno is a very astute coach. He's a very good manager. He's a brilliant man manager. And his players work for him. It's the one thing that, insight-wise, I sat in a room with Diogo Jota, Willy Bolly, Neves, and Vinagre, I think his name was pronounced. All 4 of them in a room due to my old job a few days after they signed. And I'm just chatting to them all. Young lads, why are you all here? 3 of them turned down Champions League teams to play for Wolves because they wanted to be, at that age and that time in their career, they wanted to be looked after by Nuno. That just speaks volumes about the individual. And that's not something I've read. That's direct from those 4 players' mouths, chatting to them about, why it is that they do what they do. So I think Spurs fans, I would just say, relax a little bit. 5 weeks ago, you couldn't find a manager. You're now getting some really talented players in. You got your 6 and 2-0 in the Premier League this year, 6 points from 6. I don't think now, for me, is a time for you to be panicking and worrying and getting your sort of knickers in a twist. Are there likely to be any other signings that are completed? I know that there is this young lad, Saul, that they're sort of looking to complete, this young 18-year-old coming in. We know they've been looking at other centre-backs options. Zuma and Pau Torres and Kounde have been mentioned. There's also the young lad, the young Japanese centre-back whose name now eludes me. Is there likely to be any other activity as far as you're aware at Tottenham?
Well, I mean, I guess the big question is, if Kane does end up going, then they obviously have to find a striker. And that's completely dependent on that. Look, going back to Kane for a second, not sure why this isn't progressing. Like, one of the reasons that's quite clear is that Daniel Levy just does not want to negotiate. So that you talked about maybe intermediaries have gone there with a bid. From what I understand, like, if anyone even comes to Tottenham and mentions Kane's name, they're being dismissed. Like, that, they are literally ignoring it. And I'm not sure there are many businesses where you can get away with just ignoring people trying to buy assets from you. Maybe you can, I don't know. But that's the tactic that they're taking right now. So it'll be interesting. But that is one thing, though, that's annoyed Kane. So let's see. I mean, they've got people lined up to come in as forwards if that's the case. One thing that's going to be really interesting, if anyone's got a lot of time on their hands, then feel free to do this on our behalf. I'd love to know how many players have been linked with Tottenham since Paratici came in. It's unreal. Like, this guy, I mean, I was told when he came in, like, he doesn't just go after one player at a time. He'll go after 3, 4, 5, and then he'll eliminate as he goes through the process. Yeah, I mean, that's proved to be more than true. It's unbelievable how many players have been on Tottenham's radar in the past couple of months.
It's a lot. And do you know what I think is interesting, though, about the Harry Kane situation? Is, again, I'm big about what I remember. I'm like an elephant when it comes to this stuff. What did the club say? So, for instance, get onto Arsenal in a minute, but Arsenal sort of said, We can't buy until we sell. Well, a lot of their players are they're leaving in the next few days. They don't then go and buy somebody else that makes that money up. Then you've been lied to. As far as I'm concerned, as a fan, lied to. Spurs push the narrative through their tier 1 journalists that they're looking for another striker, basically as a new toy for Kane to play with him. So why hasn't that been done yet? For me, they're looking at those strikers always as potential replacements, because otherwise you bring otherwise Vlahovic, which has gone very quiet in the last 3 or 4 days, would be here. It'd be, look, Kane, look who we've got for you. And that hasn't happened. Like, that's going down to the wire as well. And yeah, it's going to be very intriguing to see what they do. I still think Kane's on, as you've mentioned. I still think they'll go and buy a big striker. Even I know a lot of people don't like me mentioning it, but even the Lautaro Martinez deal 5-6 days ago, he was very close to signing a new deal. That's suddenly gone very, very quiet as well. I'm not writing anything off. This window's been mad. I'm not writing a single thing off in relation to that. Ladies and gentlemen, get your super chat questions in for Dean this morning. Everyone says, Terry, you got to go check it out. Fabrizio's tweeted, Genk have signed a player this morning from Chelsea.
That's Ugbo, wasn't it?
Yeah, there we go. Not massive news, but again, just another little bit of income there for Chelsea. More great business. Next,
your mate Leith has. By the way, Leith has counted already. How many players Tottenham have been linked with? 11 centre backs, 6 right backs, 8 midfielders, 5 wingers, 3 strikers, 10 managers. Messi and Ronaldo. There you go. Told you it was a lot.
The Ronaldo one is my favourite. We're talking Arsenal next, but later on the show, ladies and gentlemen, we will be delving into Manchester United. Could they be going after Ruben Neves? Even going to give you the chance to let it. Maybe Dean's up for this. You have to take a few calls from the viewers.
Of course.
So we'll open up the lines up for you to come on and have your say this morning on the Done Deal show. We'll share that link very, very soon. But what we need you to do is smash it. Once we hit 500 likes, then we'll open up those phone lines. So get hitting that like button, phone up to come on and have your say. Get your super chats in as well. But next up, Arsenal Football Club. What is going on there? Arsenal Football Club. Ramsdale in, Odegaard in. Players now on the way out. Willian looks like he's going to Corinthians. We've got Nketiah looking like he might move out. What's going on there? And do you expect there to be more incomings potentially? Or maybe they'll go back in for one of their bigger targets? Or do you think things are pretty much done and dusted? It's only sales that they're concentrating on now?
Well, definitely after a right back. I mean, Bellerin's still pushing to get out the club. And they're in for Kieran Trippier, which seems like a waste of time to me personally, and from what I'm told, because one, they don't want to go near his current valuation. I think his release clause is something like 34 million. They don't want to pay that. But also, Man United are interested in Kieran Trippier. And if Trippier does leave Atletico, he wants to join Man United. He doesn't want to join Arsenal. So it is genuine interest from Arsenal in him. And they are looking to see how close they can get to finding an agreement. But yeah, they're not going to go as high as 30 odd million. But ultimately, even if they were to settle, say, I don't know, I'll make up a figure, say £23 million. From what I'm told, Man United would probably match that and he would join Man United. So that seems strange to me. But yeah, right back is one of the positions that they're on. I'm sure you've seen the stuff with Aubameyang, and Arsenal wouldn't stand in his way if he was to, look to move. Obviously, like Aubameyang finding a new club at this stage is almost impossible. He's on ridiculous wages. Hasn't been in form. There are no takers for Aubameyang right now. So it's kind of at a dead end, but Arsenal are obviously finding it difficult to play down narratives around players like that at the moment. The fact is there is an issue between Arteta and Aubameyang. There has been friction leading into the season. And Arteta does not mind if he is not part of his squad going forward. And if he could have got him out and replaced him, he would have done it. Put it that way. And that's not a good place to be when Aubameyang's supposed to be your captain, your star man, your key forward, the goal scorer. Everything should really be coming through Aubameyang like it was, 18 months ago. It's a strange thing. I mean, Arsenal make some weird decisions. Even Granit Xhaka right now, like 1 minute he's on the verge of joining Roma. now. It's like he's got a new contract and he's probably the captain. Like, how does that happen? How can you be halfway out the door and now you're our new leader? It's very, very bizarre, and they just don't help themselves, like Odegaard even. Like, what's Odegaard changing? Like, for that to be the guy that you've ended up signing as your creative midfielder, it doesn't change anything. He was there last season. He didn't change his season. He didn't transform it. And okay, he'll probably do better this term because he's a permanent player, because he's had time to settle. But he's not going to hit any phenomenal figures that are going to transform Arsenal into a top 6 side. He's not going to be the Bruno Fernandes of Arsenal. And that's what they were looking for. So for me, this window is like, it started with promise because they were signing players that looked like they were the future. Like Lokonga's starting games like he's not even for the future, he's for now. And you look at their lineup and the people that are actually getting games in that defence, it's extremely worrying, like with or without an injury problems. Like the depth of squad just isn't there. They will sign at least one, probably 2 players before deadline, but it's just not going to be enough as far as I can tell.
They need those the signings they made, as you've already mentioned, the Tavares and Lokongas. Okay, really good base. Ben White, I still think is going to be a good signing for them. It was then what are you going to do after that? And they've just ended up, I don't know what the right word for it is, whether it's bottling it, whether it's in the end walking away from those harder deals to get done. And I understand, like Chelsea are at a point where they're going to sell a bit before they buy, but they're in a very strong position as European champions to be able to do that. Arsenal are not there. Arsenal's owners and Arsenal's football club needed to make these signings they've made, but then it needed to be some marquee players come in that are good enough to improve them. And as you stated weeks ago, Lautaro Martinez is a prime example. The deal was there to be done. It was there to be done. Not only could they have signed Lautaro Martinez, if we're going to believe Inter Milan on this occasion, which many people seem to want to do, that they're saying now Martinez won't leave because Lukaku's gone. If Arsenal would have got that business done, not only would they have signed a brilliant attacker, they would have stopped Chelsea from getting Lukaku. So you could actually, like from a fan point of view, you could have improved our squad and stopped one of your biggest rivals almost getting that final piece in their title challenging season. And that's the bit for me that would irk me as an Arsenal fan. There's a question here for one of our moderators, South London's finest. It says, Dean, is Edu's job under threat?
No. In fact, everyone speaks glowingly about him, to be honest. Like, I'm spoken to a couple of agents that say that he's unbelievable at his job. His depth of knowledge is ridiculous. Great pleasure to deal with. Never heard anyone actually say a bad word about him, to be honest. So just based on what I've heard and been told, I'd say no, he's not going anywhere.
Interesting, because Arsenal fans think he's absolutely awful.
I mean, bear in mind the people I'm speaking to are trying to get players into his club and make money out of him, so maybe they are going to say that.
That's what I was about to say. Like, if people having their pockets lined, they're going to say he's brilliant. Absolutely, it's. I get the feeling with Edu, he makes the right decisions for people he knows, agents and maybe even himself. I'm not too sure if he is making those decisions best for Arsenal. As I've said, give Odegaard and Ramsdale back and use that money and buy Maddison, or at the very least, put the asking price in. And if it doesn't happen, at least Arsenal fans know we tried. Like, it's a strange one to me. A Strip Bear here with a super sticker of I think it's a cat smiling. Thank you very much, Strip Bear. It meant to be a bear. That looks more like a cat, but thank you very much, Strip Bear, for that super sticker. It means a great deal to us. You mentioned earlier on here, we were talking Arsenal about Kieran Trippier, and then sort of alluded to Man United are looking. Is that still a player that you think Man United could go in for later on in the window? Is that still something Man United could focus on?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that could happen. I don't think it's a disaster if it doesn't happen. I don't think it particularly changes the season's prospects. But definitely, like, if they could find some middle ground with Atletico over the fee. Obviously, United went in with a bid of £10 million, which, you know, was derisory in Atleti's terms. Particularly, he's got a clause like 30 odd million. It wasn't going to come close. United might go back in with like 20 million or so to try and get it done, and because they know that Kieran Trippier wants to join them. So yeah, it's just one that's kind of in the background right now, and could come through before deadline. Yeah.
Absolutely. Another deal that's kind of reared its head in the last few days, a number of reports, one from the Mirror that came out last night, that Man United will attempt to do a deal with Wolves for Ruben Neves. We know it's a deal that Man United have kind of had on the back burner the majority of the summer. They've shown interest, but there's been no official bids or approaches. Is that one that you think, I mean, a lot of calls for him to come in after not the diabolical game against Southampton, but we lost that midfield battle. The midfield battle was lost. Ruben Neves, his name was trending after that because of his performance against Tottenham. What's the latest with Man United's potential move for Ruben Neves, or Ruben Neves' exit from Wolves in general?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard that it's advanced beyond what I've told you before. Like, I've been pretty solid on the fact that throughout this window, United have been very keen on Ruben Neves, and if a midfield spot does open up in terms of bringing somebody in, then it's somebody that they're ready to pursue like hotly. And I think they're just in two minds. Like, I'm not sure if he's the exact type of midfielder that they need, and I think that they've got to get it right. Basically, like, they have to be 100% sure that he does transform what happens in the middle of the park. The one thing I would say is that he is realistic, he is attainable, he is quality. And so that's why I'm not going to rule it out and haven't all summer. Just seems to me that this might be a better fit than the likes of Camavinga, because he's already done it in the Premier League. He's proven. And I know from various people at United that they've got, huge knowledge and insight on his game and his stats and what he would bring to the team. So I think it's one that's there. I wouldn't necessarily say it's likely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I feel like it's, like we said, it depends on everybody's interpretation. I feel like it's a deal that's doable, but will it advance? I think it's about exits at Manchester United. I think the same with Kieran Trippier. I feel like if, for instance, if West Ham come in and buy Jesse Lingard as an example, and maybe we get another player going out on loan, I think there's a potential for us to go and do it. But squad size is important, and clubs don't want to bloat a squad and be spending money.
No, look, the thing is, I look at United's squad and I'm like, okay, like, unbelievable business in Varane and Sancho, but then you look at the lineup against Southampton, and to see Martial and Matic in that team, I mean, that shouldn't be happening. Like, why he's put Martial in a starting lineup unnecessarily like that is beyond me, to be honest. A player that they've considered all summer is available for transfer, hasn't shown signs of good form as a forward for a long time. You stick with what's working, and if anything, surely Greenwood would go into the central role, and you bring Sancho in and make his debut out wide. Matic, I'm not sure why he hasn't been moved on, and that should be one of the slots that's opened up by now. Lingard looks like he's giving up now on staying at United. West Ham back on the tails of him to see if they can get him in. I think that is quite likely, from what I'm told, that does end up happening now. Lingard starting to accept that there's no way in at United, and after what happened at West Ham last season for him, and the way they've started this season, it's a great fit for him. So yeah, there are deals like that. United do need a bit of end of summer season clearance sale, don't they? That there are like 4 or 5 players there that they need to just get off the books. And if you can get rid of a couple of midfielders that aren't going to be figuring, and you bring Ruben Neves, then that's helpful. Phil Jones is another one, by the way, that is going to look to move. Like, Phil Jones, again, another one that's accepting that he's not going to play at United, and he's got the opportunity to revive his career, and he needs to do it. Like, he's got his fitness back at the moment, and he needs to just find somewhere to kickstart his career. I mean, he's 29, Phil Jones. I know he's been around a long time, but like, there's no reason he can't have another stage of his career that is good. I'm told that he's seriously considering going into the Championship and trying to join a team that is going to be in the promotion hunt. Basically, he wants to just be part of something right now.
He just needs to lower what I know he won't want to, but he's got to lower what he wants to be paid. No one's going to give him 70, 80 grand a week that Man United committed to. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's a shame, really, because a lot of kids, and I say kids, that won't remember when he first went to Man United. I mean, he was tipped. I mean, his first season, he was sensational. He was meant to be so good, Phil Jones, and it just didn't. I mean, Fergie really gave him the kiss of death by saying he could become Man United's greatest ever player. And in the early days, I was still a season ticket holder at the time. I remember chatting to a few of the old boys. One of the guys, Baz, who's just, I don't know how old he was when I was talking to him. He must have been in his late 70s, and he'd seen them all. And he literally was like, honestly, I'm getting Duncan Edward vibes from the way he started. And that wasn't like, it wasn't hyperbolic Twitter or social media or content creators saying it. This was just hardened fans. And this guy, Baz, he's been to nearly every single home and away game for 50 odd years. Like, he wasn't talking nonsense. He was meant to be that good. And it just didn't happen for him. So it's going to be intriguing. Do you expect West Ham to come in heavy for Lingard? I mean, they haven't made their move yet, which I found a bit interesting all summer. Do you expect them in this last week to try and sign him? I mean, they've had a brilliant start to their campaign. And you spoke earlier about Lukaku, what he's doing in the league. I mean, Antonio's up there right now as one of the best strikers. He was Bergkamp-esque last night in his touches and goals. But do you think West Ham will come in for Lingard?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, they're already in the conversation. They'd laid off of it for a bit because they were told that Jesse wanted to see if he was in the team in the early weeks of the season. They've seen clearly that he's not in the main plans under Solskjaer. So their plan was always really to visit it in the last week of the window. One, because that's what the player had really requested, but two, his value should be less by now as well. If you'd have tried to strike a deal for Jesse Lingard a month ago, probably would have cost you 10 million more than it will do at the end of this window. So yeah, they're definitely in the hunt for him. Lingard, boosted by the fact that Declan Rice is still at West Ham, has helped him. West Ham, of course, early league leaders. Jesse Lingard, love to go win the league this season. So there you go.
Can you imagine? There we go. Hit that like and share button. People are going to start going to your calls soon. We have a super chat from earlier on here from Tia Khan, who says, Arsenal fans think they will buy Bissouma. Do you think Brighton will sell, Dean?
No, I said a couple of weeks ago on here, Bissouma's not leaving Brighton. I haven't got an answer on why there is no chance of Bissouma leaving Brighton. But Arsenal were told, just give up on this because he's not going. So there you go. Sorry, I can't offer more insight on why that's not going to happen. But I'm told that basically he's at Brighton for this season, and next summer, yeah, possibly Bissouma leaves, but very, very unlikely now unless it was a ridiculous offer.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, and it was almost one of those weird ones, but just told he isn't, and that's the only reason. But
it's strange sometimes.
Why that response is nice is, I remember you saying last week how sometimes you get told things by clubs, and you're like, why would you tell me that? Why would you give me? Sometimes we're just not selling him. Why? There is no reason. We've just said no. I mean, in some respects, that's maybe only the answer we need. Brighton are looking to progress and again, they've started the season pretty well. Also,
I love this guy that keeps asking how Millwall was the other night. By the way, it was good, mate. Fulham are storming away this season, so I had a lovely time at Millwall. We were 2-0 up within 8 minutes. It was very relaxing, enjoyable evening. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. See that they do remember. They do remember here, and it's interesting. A few of the deals. There's been a couple of deals this week that you've called or you sort of mentioned early, and then they've progressed or the links become more popular. And I get DMs from people going, "Oh, Dean was right, Terry. Let him know he was right." Dean knows he's right, but thank you very much for.
Yeah, I just don't go on Twitter crowing about it like some people do.
I do.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do it. You've got a community to build and stuff, and I guess I have too in a way, but I'm past that. I've been doing this for a long time, and there's so much aggro that comes the other side of it, and it gets into your head and stuff, and actually distracts you a lot of the time from believing your sources and just focusing on doing your job.
Well, I'm more inclined to want people to get credit where credit's due. Yourself and Pete, I push, and obviously you're part of the show. There's Sasha, a young lad really growing in sort of the Belgium scene. And like he's only actually spoke about 4 or 5 deals this summer where he spoke with an air of authority and knowledge, and he's been spot on. And then he spoke about a deal that we haven't really mentioned yet today, which is we could talk Camavinga, but he mentioned Tchouaméni, that Man United had contact with his reps. And I sort of saw this trending, and I spoke to him on the phone. I'm like, what's going on? He said they've made contact. I'm telling you that they've made contact. And I believe him because he hasn't, but I've rung him about 10 other deals from that region of Europe, and he's gone, no idea, haven't spoke to no one, reached out, no one I know knows anything.
Yeah.
So when he like says, I've heard about this one, I tend to treat that with more credibility. But of course, but then it got shut down by a few other journalists that said, no, Man United have made no contact. And everyone's like, see, there was no contact. I just sort of feel like, just slow down a little bit, because a few weeks ago,
I don't like it when people really dismiss other people's stories either. Like it's a silly route to go down, and it's unnecessary, to be honest. Like everybody gets different information, everybody has different contacts and different ways of hearing stuff. I don't think there are many journalists out there that are just making stuff up. I'm sure there are ITKs on Twitter that are just for followers, but actual journalists, you can't get away with it because your success rate is what it is at the end of a window, and people will suss you out. I learned that quite early on newspapers that, however, you might be desperate for a story, your boss might be writing your back, but you can't make something up because it ain't going to happen. The chances of you making up a story and it then happening are so slim. You might as well just get on the phone for 3 hours and try and actually find out a real story.
That's as you say, that's the thing with it. Like I am not trying to be a journalist. I don't want to be a journalist. I'll leave that to yourselves who are trained and educated yourselves to be able to do that. I'm a content creator, but I do ask for information, and I've done it on a few. I back in March, I started talking about Kounde being a really big possibility for Chelsea through the same people that I've mentioned, and I was getting shot down. But why are you making this up for? I'm not doing that. I'm really not making it up. I'm just telling you what I've been told. And then when it started to come to fruition, there's a lot of silence, and I'm like, well, I don't expect like you to bow down and kiss my feet. I'm not that kind of man. But at the same time, just because your favorite journalist hasn't said it yet doesn't mean that it isn't true. And that's what I find strange. Like I listen to Fabrizio, I listen to Matt Law, I listen to you, but I listen to all of you, but then I still go and seek more information elsewhere. I still go and look at it and go, okay, well, I think a little differently. But yeah, it's an interesting take that some people have. On Camavinga quickly, a few people are asking in the comments section. Fabrizio mentioned yesterday that he could be up for sale. I think that's a fairly well-known thing. Any chance of a Premier League move, or do you still think he favours PSG and a move to Spain over coming to Man United?
Yeah, I can only go by what I've been told by English clubs that have kind of been on his tail, and they do definitely get the feeling that obviously they're going to have the discussions with the English club because they want to know what terms would be on the table and like where they're heading. But I think they're quite cautious of the fact that if you get that Premier League move wrong, your career can quickly stall. And worse than that, you can quickly start falling away. There are enough cautious tales of that happening in past years with young players. He's only, 18? He's got to be so careful about this next move, and staying in France just makes more sense for him right now. And I know that all along I was told, like, if PSG come in, then he goes to PSG. And the reason, for example, United had some optimism at one point was because PSG actually hadn't shown any interest in it. Well, that's because they were signing like the best 5 players in the world that were on the market at that moment, and Camavinga was a bit down the pecking order. But it looks like PSG are a bit more involved in discussions now. So I don't think he'll come to the Premier League yet, but I think he will do one day, and he's trying to just get an idea of how his future is going to look, both financially and professionally, when that time comes.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very intriguing to see what happens with him in the next few days, whether a move transpires or not. We're going to go to some of your calls now. If you've got any questions, please get them in to us. Get member chats, of course, and super chats. We always prioritize. Thank you very much for supporting the show, supporting the channel. We've got Father backstage. We've got Bashir backstage as well. The link, if you want to call in, is pinned to the live comment section, so you can phone up, you can have your say, and all that jazz. We'll take those calls now. First, we're going to go to Father. Father is Timo Werner's secret something. I never quite can read the full name because it's such a long name. it doesn't show it all. But we're going to get you on first to have your say with Dean and I. Hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do this. Morning. Welcome to the terrace, my friend. What do you want to say?
Morning, boss. Yeah, the Kounde news kind of, reported yesterday that we're trying to work on the personal terms. Already agrees, ready to join. If I think it was yesterday, I also read the news that if the two clubs reach an agreement, but Kounde will be respectful with Sevilla as well, and we also working on trying to sell the Kurt Zuma. Yesterday's they're working on the verbal agreement with West Ham to sign Kurt Zuma. No agreement on the personal terms, but at the moment, last night as well, late last night, Bakayoko also for going to AC Milan. They're trying to make it as a permanent move, and we let go of Davide Zappacosta, and it was kind of mad last night. I feel like this, if the Chelsea trying to make a permanent move to AC Milan a couple minutes ago, and I feel like it's going to be a massive W for us this transfer window because we're trying to get rid of some of the deadwood for a while now. We haven't get rid of Ross Barkley yet, and because we haven't found any other club that want to sign Ross Barkley. Drinkwater that's still in this team as well. Batshuayi is already gone. At the moment, we are in a good position to sign Kounde, and it's only a matter of time before the window closes, man.
Yeah, I think Dean's kind of agreed with that already. Do you have any questions for Dean at all?
Yeah, I was kind of like asking the question about how is it taking a long time because the Jules Kounde's it's already been agreed for weeks. The personal terms. What is it? Is it like the Sevilla? Because is it Sevilla trying to stall the deal, or is it like it's just behind the scenes, kind of like it's not making it? They're not making it easy for Chelsea, though. That's my question.
Yeah, I mean Sevilla, they really don't want to lose Jules Kounde. I mean, they see an opportunity to try and win La Liga this season, and they're much better chance to do that if Kounde is part of the squad. And he's got a release clause that they want to be met if he's going to go. And so far, Chelsea haven't got close enough to that anyway. And at the same time, as I mentioned earlier on the show, I don't know if you were listening, but Chelsea looking to tie up Christensen and Rudiger on deals, and part of the reason for them pursuing Kounde is because they're worried about what this team looks like in a year's time, how it evolves. If you were to, for example, lose Thiago Silva, if Christensen didn't sign any deal, if Rudiger didn't sign a new deal, and you're suddenly stuck in a position where you had to replace those guys, you're going to have to pay out even more money. And it's just kind of accelerated of why they've got in for Kounde this summer. He wasn't their prime target for this summer, I wouldn't have said, in terms of defenders, but he's somebody that they've become more keen on as it's gone on. And look, we all know that the deal's there to be done at this point. But we'll have to wait and see. We all think it's going to happen. There's a possibility it doesn't, but it probably will.
Father, thank you very much, my friend, for calling in and having your say. Really appreciate it this morning. Top man. Thank you. Next on the show, we're going to go to Robbie Singh, longtime viewer of the Football Terrace. Welcome, mate. What do you want to say? What's your question for Dean?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Just a bit nervous, so spare me if I bubble up a bit. So Gary Neville spoke about United making a statement signing recently. I think it was on yesterday. And he said he compared it to the Fergie era, which I understand. And I know you guys have been talking a lot about United wanting to offload players and the main priority is CDM. Do you think there's a chance that they might make a statement signing? Because Sancho is technically a last season signing. It's not this season's big signing, right? Other than Varane, obviously. So that's my question.
So you know what? Whenever Gary Neville comes out with stuff like this, I'm always wondering if he's kind of voicing what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would like to be voicing, but can't. I mean, obviously he knows him well, and he's definitely in the loop with what's going on at the club. And so when he comes out with things like, why aren't United going after Harry Kane? I always wonder to myself, like, is this what Solskjaer's really thinking? But then I'm like, well, no, they've got Cavani tied up. they want Greenwood to become that player, and they've got a lot of faith in him actually doing that. And if he doesn't, they're going to go for Haaland next summer anyway. So United want to be in that conversation. So I don't know if Kane was really ever going to happen. I know this thing as well about Jadon Sancho being last summer's money. I mean, I'm not sure it works like that either, to be honest. I mean, at the end of the day, they've also saved money by waiting a year. So it's you can take whichever stance you want on it. The way that United are looking at it is that they are striking unbelievable value in their deals right now by signing Sancho at the money they did, by getting Varane at like 40 million. You've got two players there for just over £100 million, which is ridiculous. And to then flip that and go and spend £150 million, say, on Harry Kane just blows what they're trying to do completely out the water. They're trying to get away from spending stupid amounts of players and paying premiums for people just because they're Man United and they should be in the market for that player. And I think that that's what they're trying to get away from. So it doesn't really surprise me that the club and the way it's being run, that they're not going down that route. Look, we're also seeing a transition here. We're coming out of the Ed Woodward era and we're going into a time when they're looking at recruitment very differently. And I think it's been a lot better in the last year or so. So I'd like to see them make a statement signing in the centre of the pitch. There's no doubt about that. That's going to be United's big weakness that people pick out time and time again. But even then, if you're signing a central midfielder, you're looking at £40 million. I don't think you're looking at £100 million Declan Rice.
Yeah.
Right. Terry, just one question before I go, if you don't mind. Sorry.
Yeah, cool.
You just mentioned about that, the United signing like Kane. United needs to be there, right? And I know we have made mistakes in the past. Di Maria, one of them. Falcao was one of them. But if we look back at, I know Terry hates comparing eras, but back in the Fergie's era, right, United were expected to make those signings. Like, I think Cole was a big signing back then. Berbatov is one of them, Wayne Rooney. So is it a really safe approach that United is taking this time around? Like trying to make sure they don't overpay for people and at the same time go with a safer approach where they're getting the signings they want, but at the same time, they're not putting themselves in the mud like they did with Maria or, Falcao and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Sanchez in particular burned them and they learned lessons from that. It really hurt what happened with Alexis Sanchez, the money they had to pay for him and also the form that he showed on the back of it and his desire to play for Man United wasn't there. And they've got to make sure, and they're putting even more checks in than ever on the kind of character of players and that they are the right fit for Man United and they actually want to be there. And that's Varane was a great example of that. Chelsea were also in for Varane, but pulled out of him because it became very clear that he wanted to join Man United and not Chelsea. So Chelsea were like, okay, we'll move on because we don't want you if you don't want to be here. And United did pursue it because they couldn't believe how keen Varane was to come. So yeah, you're absolutely right. They have been burned by past expensive signings and they want to be not more frugal, but just more smart when it comes to these deals.
Sweet. Thanks, Terry.
No problem. Robbie, thank you very much for coming on, mate, and having your say. Really appreciate it, buddy. Top man. Thank you. We're going to go next to Mohammed. Mohammed's a Liverpool fan. Welcome to the terrace. What do you want to say, mate?
Hello, Terry. I just want to talk about the Saul Niguez update to Chelsea. It does look like probably is going to Chelsea, which is very unfortunate from a Liverpool point of view because it doesn't look like we're going to be getting the Ronaldo replacement that we desperately need. Because I see if we get a couple of injuries in midfield this season, we are screwed, in my opinion. Because we haven't replaced any. We haven't replaced any of our players that have left this season. Well, except for Elliot because he's supposed to be the Shaqiri replacement. But besides that, Ronaldo hasn't been replaced, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool's stance on this is that they're giving players that are already in the squad an opportunity to step back up. Harvey Elliott has been desperate for an opportunity and he's getting it. And I think Naby Keita as well, like it's such a big year for Naby Keita. They invested a lot in him and it's kind of do or die this season for him. So that they want to give him that chance as well. And Liverpool believe that they've pretty much got a squad that can do that. They've got 6 players probably that they can use as options in the middle of the park for the coming season. They think that's enough. They think that adding Thiago a year ago and him not really having the influence so far that you would expect, and him growing into the league is going to make a difference. Van Dijk coming back in with his the way that he commands everybody else is going to make a difference. The fact that Salah's and Mane are still fit, Jota's become such a big part of the team. They actually think that togetherness and that unity that they've got gives them something that some of the other teams don't have. So I understand what you're saying about Wijnaldum, and I do agree that it's a big surprise, 1, that they let him go, and 2, that he hasn't been replaced. But what I suspect is that they want to hold back and make a significant signing next year than just make a signing for the sake of it now.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose, in the sense that we're giving all these players contracts, but if you look at the outgoings like Shaqiri, for example, or Harry Wilson, that is more than enough to get a replacement in for Genie.
Yeah, I think it is. And Liverpool have said a few summers running now or a few windows running that like something big is coming down the line. At some point, that's got to come to fruition, that they've got to deliver on that. But what I would say is Liverpool fans seem to be split about 70-30, 70% fully back FSG. We trust what they're doing. We know what they're doing. We've got Klopp. We've got this great squad. There are others that are a little bit more frustrated. And the only problem with their approach is that they're a couple of injuries away from maybe not having enough to win the league. Which should be the standard once you've won it in the way in which they did. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Mohammed, thank you very much for calling in, mate, and having your say. Really appreciate it, bro. Thank you very much. Next caller, Bashar is on the line with us now. Remind us who you support, mate. What do you want to say?
I don't carry. I always support Inter Milan, of course, but I always follow Terrace and Premier League.
Love.
So the first thing I want to say is that the best deal was done in the Premier League was Paratici. For me, following the Italian league, and know that Paratici is a team builder, man. He builds team, and you will see in a couple of years, Tottenham will be a big force. Believe me. Another thing, I don't believe that we're going to lose another number 9. I mean, another attacker after we lost. I'm gutted after we lost Lukaku. Lautaro Martinez will never go to Arsenal, for my opinion, because Inter is a bigger club and they're playing in the Champions League. My question to Dean, if it's possible, I think that the Premier League, as they are underestimating the Italian league. For me, there's a lot of talented players there. Manchester United went in a couple of years ago, I think, for Milinkovic Savic, the midfield, the attacking midfield with Lazio. I just don't understand why they don't go to this player instead of Declan Rice or other. I think this player will be massive for Manchester United and other talented players. I just don't understand why it's not rated, the Italian league, as much as the German leagues and the French league. And thank you, guys. And Terry, one thing before I leave. I'm sorry the other day I called you because I don't know how Telegram works, so it was me.
Oh, okay, it was yourself. No worries, mate. Not a problem. Yeah. So that question is about why is Serie A disrespected? I mean, Dean, do you see that it's disrespected by the clubs, or what's your take?
I don't think it's disrespected. I think it depends what position you play in and how old you are and what your background is and whether clubs can take a risk on signing you. Milinkovic Savic has got obvious quality. He's an unbelievable player, but I do think it would be a big risk to go into Man United, and look, I know that people outside of the Premier League often don't like to hear it, but the pace and the intensity of the Premier League is the strongest in the world. Like, anyone that comes in struggles. Like, Timo Werner struggled, and he admitted it. He couldn't believe how hard it was to adjust. And I think Milinkovic Savic comes into the bracket of he wouldn't have the same time on the ball to make his decisions and to pull things off that do look so good in Serie A. I love him. I think he's great. But I think he probably needs either time or another move before joining a club like that. So I think that's a difference. If you're signing off forward, I think that there's a little less risk because you're playing a little more on intuition when you're coming in from Italy. And if you can score a goal, you can score a goal. If you can get in positions, then that's great. But yeah, I think that other positions, there's always a slight concern if you haven't played in other leagues, particularly, and if you're just a slightly younger age, then they don't quite want to spend the money that it takes because he's not cheap.
There we go. Bashir, thank you very much, mate, for coming on and having your say. Really appreciate that, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. And everyone who's phoned in today, all of our super chatters, thank you. I'm obviously back later on today with more content for you. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't done so already. Dean, as ever, thank you very much indeed. It'll be interesting to see how some of these deals transpire now over the next few days.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, take care of yourselves and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.